And good evening and welcome to this edition of Train Aficionado Live. I'm Jonathan Higgins and we've got a great packed show for you tonight. So hopefully you're looking to learn something new and using a great website that I use all the time. Let's take a look at it. Basically, I use this website all the time. It's the OpenRailwayMap.org. This website is super handy. So tonight we're going to do a Railfan's guide to the Open Railway Map website. So we've got a great show ahead of us. So let's dive into it right now. I want to remind you to make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel here. Make sure you do that. Give us a thumbs up. Do the bell notification to be notified if we post any new videos. And make sure you follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, X, and Instagram. So let's dive right into this presentation tonight. While you're checking out things, make sure you check out the Train Aficionado store, which is located on our website, trainaficionado.com. If you purchase any of our swag, like the hat I have on tonight, it helps to support the channel. While you're at trainaficionado.com, make sure you check out the blog and also our Railfan guides. Got a lot of good stuff there. So as I was mentioning, the OpenRailwayMaps.com, I believe, I think I said .org, but I believe it's .com. Let me, I'll double check that right now. But this is a great website. I can't say enough about Open Railway Maps. I mean, this is actually a website that is dedicated to the railroad lines. And it is phenomenal. Yeah, it's openrailwaymaps.org. So I made a little typo there. So it's .org. And there's a lot of great stuff on this, this website. The biggest thing that I can mention, if you're a history buff, you're going to love this. There is abandoned railroad lines. You can see here. This is actually based in Hamilton, Ohio, this screenshot here. And you can see that there was an abandoned railroad line that ran along US 127. I believe this was a realignment, or this was where the original line was. You could see that it's a brown dashes, which indicates the abandoned railroad line. You can also see to the right of that box, you can also see that there was a small yard that was on the Newcastle district, the Norfolk Southern Newcastle district. So it's really cool to be able to see where these lines used to be. You can see landmarks, you can see the street addresses, the street names, and some pertinent information so you can actually see what's going on in this area. Along with seeing some of the abandoned railroad lines, you can also see the major locations along the route, like key locations. Butler Interlocking, so that's a major location there. It'll indicate some other locations along the way there, but that's one major one that's in Hamilton. So you're able to see that as a major location on the line. One of the greatest things is identifying the railroad lines. As you can see here, you can see which lines are what. I put boxes around them, so we just mentioned the Newcastle district. So that's the Norfolk Southern Newcastle district. And then you can see the other box that's just to the left of it is the Cincinnati Terminal Subdivision. And just north of the Butler Interlocking, that's where this track turns into the Toledo Subdivision. So typically where it says subdivision, it's typically a CSX railroad line in most cases for CSX areas where they operate. As for NS, typically it'll say district. You'll have to check for your other local railroads, you know, what they use for kind of a hint indication of what lines they belong to. I just know this because I've always lived in Norfolk Southern or CSX areas. And I know that, you know, CSX calls their lines, you know, whatever the name is, subdivision. And then on the NS lines, they call it districts. So this is really handy also if you're trying to figure out frequencies. Depending on the database and how it's set up on RadioReference, when you're looking up, let's say Ohio, for example, and you go to the railroad frequencies for Ohio, they'll typically be marked by what district or subdivision they're in. So if you're not totally sure, then I would use OpenRailwayMap to be able to do that. So OpenRailwayMap is definitely handy for just being able to figure out a lot of stuff here. And then you can see that within this small space in Hamilton, Ohio, we can see 3 different divisions. If I was able to open this, or districts I should say, if we were open this up even more, we would be able to see a couple other lines that intersect here as well. Identifying track numbers. So you probably hear a lot of times a detector going off, milepost, blah, blah, blah. Track 2, no defect, or track 1, no defect. So the great thing about the website is it also indicates the track 1 and track 2 markings here. This is actually in Taunton, Massachusetts, at a major junction point, and we can see that there are several tracks. There's a single track that's actually on the Middleborough subdivision heading towards Middleborough, Massachusetts, and then we see another single track bearing up in the screen. That's the Middleborough subdivision continuing, and then we see once it turns here, the New Bedford main line, there's actually a couple of tracks. There's a main track which is running parallel to track 1 and track 2. So you really get to know the lay of the land and what tracks are what. So when you hear it over the radio, when it's a double track line, you're able to say, okay, so the double track line, so this one's track 2, and this track is track 1. And the great thing about this is a Y that's in Taunton, so there's a lot going on here. The other thing that you can see, which we'll talk about in an upcoming slide, is there's actually shows any of those spur lines that are going into industrial locations, as you can see there towards the top of your screen, and that's the brown solid track line there. And then the quad graphic siding also has a track there as well. So we can see here at this station, which is Boston South Station, the track numbers are marked here. They're also the platform numbers in this case. So we can basically see here going from left to right the track numbers, 1 all the way over to track 13. So this is great even for any of these stations. And you can see here inside the station, you can actually see some of the things that are inside there. The bathrooms, there's a CVS pharmacy, there's a McDonald's in there. So you can really kind of see, kind of what's inside that station as well. Industrial tracks are definitely really neat here. You're able to see this in Mansfield, Massachusetts. This is an industrial park that's along the Northeast Corridor. And you can see that, when they do service this is CSX that services this industrial park. It's really interesting how they come in one direction, and they have to do a lot of moves in order to be able to service these businesses. As you can see here, there's different spur tracks going into different directions, servicing different customers. And of course, when they go in here, they're going to cross multiple streets in order to be able to get in here. So you can see a lot of back and forth movements in there. So certainly if you're in the area of railfanning and you're able to go into the park, you'll be able to see that the crews are typically doing some interesting moves in order to be able to service these businesses. And there's a couple of industrial parks that are in Mansfield, Massachusetts. And typically this one, I believe, and I'm not too sure if it's still currently serviced as often, but they at least go in there a couple times a week, being able to service these businesses, bring in cars and leaving cars. But this is certainly a really cool industrial park with a track that's going in there. And you can see that the Northeast Corridor is over to the left of the image. You can see Northeast Corridor and the track is red. And it also indicates that it's the the corridor on both tracks there. Railroad theme parks. Believe it or not, some of these are actually in the Open Railway Map website. And this is the case right here. This is Edaville Railroad in Carver, Massachusetts. So Edaville Railroad back in the day used to have over 5 miles of track. They've shortened the route considerably. It looks like a peanut, the size of it there, with that greenish yellow color there towards the bottom of the image. It's a smaller loop around, and it's about the, it looks like the shape of a peanut. The original line used to go all the way around the reservoir that you can see there, and of course it's now abandoned. But it used to go into there all the way around, and it was over 5.5 miles, I believe, off the top of my head. But this is an interesting one that you can find on there. And you can also find, along with railroad theme parks, subway lines, light rail can be found on there as well. Just a little bit of a sampling of what the Open Railway Map website looks like. You can find all types of great things on the website there, and that's just a small sampling. So I will open this up to any questions. If you have any questions about the Open Railway Map website, or you have any questions about Railfanning as well, I'd love to be able to answer those during tonight's presentation. But the website, once again, is openrailwaymap.org, and you can view it on your computer. They also have a mobile app, which does cost a small fee. It's great to have that app on your phone as well. In case you're out railfanning, you can take a look at the various railroad lines on the mobile app and be able to kind of see where these lines go, and if there's any spur lines, maybe if it's a single track or a double track, you can kind of do your research on the Open Railway Map app. Any questions or comments, please put those in the chat right now. Gentleman asking in the chat, how do you go railfanning when you're sick? Well, you probably should stay home and get better. Of course, you can watch, some cameras online on YouTube. There's tons of providers that have cameras on YouTube, and of course, you can, if you've got a smart TV, you can download RailStream has an app, and you can see some of their free cameras that they have available through their app. So there's lots of ways you can railfan at home by watching some of the cameras that are available, on YouTube, or even downloading the RailStream app and watching some of those cameras. But that's one way to do it. And the other thing too is if you got a scanner and you're relatively close to the railroad tracks, you can listen to the communication over the scanner as well. So that's what I would recommend. But if you are sick, stay home, get better, and you'll be able to get out there relatively quickly. Watson is in the other room, so he's not with me in this room right now. So the bed is currently empty, so he's not in here. Thanks, Chuck, for asking. Thank you so much. Yeah, just trying to provide a quick information regarding this website and app. It certainly is very handy. A lot of people don't know about it. And if you go to the website, it actually has the whole world of railroad lines available. So you're able to look at different countries. The other thing that I like to do with the app is typically what I'll do is I'll look up an abandoned railroad line, and then I'll pull up Google Earth and then look at the satellite images and try to follow a railroad line that's abandoned. And typically with the satellite, sometimes you can find remnants of the cut, and sometimes you can follow it for miles and miles and miles and see where it's cut through. And then if you really pay attention, you may find a depot or a railroad building that that basically is still there, but the line is completely gone. So that's something that you definitely want to keep in mind there. Chuck has got a question about the X's on the map. So let's pull up that screen one more time. So we can see here in the industrial spur that's going off the northeast corridor that there's X's in the line, X's on the screen, red X's. This basically indicates where there's a crossing they have to go over. So you can see here they have to cross Oakland Street, Maple Street, and a few others when they get inside the industrial line here. So you can definitely see that. Same thing if we roll back to one of these here. Let's take a look at Hamilton here. We can see, you know, a bunch of streets that the railroad line has to cross, and those are what the X's indicate because it's got to go over a street here. So you can see that, you know, Dayton Street right here is one of those streets. Of course, Butler Street is another one that has to go over. We can also see here that High Street, the railroad line actually goes above, and the street goes underneath. You can see that there's little markings that there's a bridge here for the railroad line. So, you know, you can even look at, you know, some smaller detail just like that. Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff on here. Another app which was mentioned in the chat is the Heritage Unit app. There's so much information on there. I could probably do a little show on the Heritage Unit app because there's a wealth of knowledge that you can gain from there as well. Does the map show which railroad owns or leases the track? It'll indicate, you know, what subdivision it is, and typically you're able, or district, and you're able to kind of look that up, and you may be able to figure that out through some additional Googling, you know, who it belongs to. I could tell you that the Toledo subdivision and the Cincinnati Terminal subdivision are both owned by CSX. And then also track rightage for that line, which I know, and it doesn't indicate it on the map, is for Norfolk Southern and CSX there. And then for the Newcastle district, that is a Norfolk Southern line, and track rightage for both CSX and Norfolk Southern on that particular line. But yeah, I mean, it will show the railroad line, identify its name, but you'll have to do a little bit more research. Sometimes I believe it may show CSX on there, depending on how much you zoom in on it. And of course, if you zoom in and zoom out, you will gain or lose some information. So if you're able to zoom in pretty tight, you know, it gets more detailed in the information that you do see on the screen. Chris is asking about a railroad line that's up in Michigan. I'm not familiar with some of the lines up there, so I'm not sure what the status is. Some railroad lines, you know, may look abandoned, but on paper they may still be a active or an active route that's not being used. So I believe when they abandon a railroad line, they have to officially put in paperwork that it's officially abandoned. So there are some railroad lines that are out there that are deemed out of service versus, you know, being deemed abandoned. So it all depends on what it's deemed. UP and BNSF will probably label their lines slightly differently. I'm not familiar with those. I'm speaking, you know, tonight with this mapping, you know, with the subdivision and district. I know that, you know, in this area, CSX uses subdivision to identify their lines and then district for NS. And that, of course, is going to vary from railroad line, whether it's a BNSF or UP or any other Class 1 railroad out there may identify differently. Even the short lines may use some sort of wording for their particular line. So those are things to definitely keep in mind. Somebody asked in the chat, is there any way to see live railroad information? As of right now, that's becoming less and less available, especially with the signaling systems that they're using. I know that Train Mark 5 was one of those, I think it was Train Mark 5. I can't remember what the name of the website was. But basically that website was following the signaling communication. And as the railroads are upgrading their systems, that's not being transmitted over the air, so it's being able to be decoded. So some of that's becoming less and less. So there's not really a true way to be able to track freight. As for passenger service, that's a different story. Amtrak does have its train tracker, and then there's a third-party train tracker out there, which would be able to track the trains. It's not real time, but you're able to see Amtrak trains moving along the line. The Boston MBTA, somebody developed a train tracker for them as well, so you're able to see the commuter rail trains. And I believe for the subway, there is, even for Boston, either on their app or on, on a third-party app, you're able to track some of that as well, which is really neat. And usually it's pretty close to real time. There may be a slight delay on that. Have somebody asking, how would you find the tracks in Glendale? So let me give you a live demo of what this website looks like. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come out of the slide deck and show you the website. So hold on one second. So as soon as you go to the website, it's going to look just like this. And you can see, look, you're seeing the world on all the railroad lines. So, of course, you have to be pretty decent with geography. And what I would do is go over here. We're going to move this to the United States, and then we're going to slowly zoom in here. And then we'll use Cincinnati is our guide point here. So we can see right here that we're zooming into Cincinnati. You can see the big yards here. We can really go into here, and you can see a lot of detail with the yards. Look at this. This is tons. And you can see Cincinnati Union Terminal here. You can see the identification of each line with its numbers, and you can continue heading north on the map. I'm going to pull out just a little bit here, and we'll take a look at Glendale. So we're going to follow the line up. And I can just easily, just slowly follow the line up here and make our way up the line here. So the line that I want to take a look at is the Cincinnati Terminal Division. So I'm going to start following that slowly north here. And we can see that we're getting closer. We got Wyoming right here. And then we have Glendale, which is coming up just a little bit further right here. So we can see Glendale, and we can see that there's two tracks here. So we can see track 1 and track 2. We can see some of the local landmarks. This is the Glendale Heritage Preservation Museum. Is actually the old depot in Glendale. And then, of course, you can see the Glendale Trackside Pub. Heading further north, you can actually see my friend Nick's house, which is right by the railroad track, so you can actually see where he lives there. And then, of course, what I did is you can keep going north here, and this would take us right to Hamilton. So continuing north, we can see a whole bunch of spur line tracks coming off the line here. So we're going to continue north, and we'll make it all the way up to Hamilton. So I just want to blow it out a little bit. So here you can see this is where I took the screenshot of Hamilton here. So I took a screenshot of this here, and you can actually see the Indianapolis sub here, right on this line. And then we can follow it, and then we can see the railroad bridge going over the Great Miami River, which is right here. And then there's an arch bridge that's here. So you can see quite a bit. If we travel further up this line, we can see the Beltline, which serviced a paper mill here in Hamilton. So basically, you know, the trains would go into here, off into this abandoned railroad line, and then loop around here, and then the paper mill was actually in here. So this was really neat back in the day. This railroad line here, some of it is now a bike trail, and it runs pretty much from Flubs, which is an ice cream place right over here, Flubs, and then it's the Hamilton Beltline Trail, and it runs from Flubs all the way over to North B Street, which terminates here. And then there used to be a line that would go through here as well. So some really cool stuff through here. So you can see when you walk the bike trail, you can see that the space really widens out here. And that's because there was a railroad yard that's right there. So yeah, you can learn quite a bit here. And this is one of these lines that you can actually kind of see, of course, where the bike trail is. It's easy to be able to tell where it is because the cut is kind of identified by the bike trail. And then there is some track closer to here that's still in the street. Like, for instance, Franklin Street in Hamilton, you can still see the track still there. And then there was an industrial spur, which you can still see a bumper here. And this was actually for a lumber yard right over here that's off of Main Street in Hamilton. So a lot of great stuff on here. Then, of course, we can blow this out a little bit more, and we can see, you know, a wide open shot of everything here. You can also see Middletown, Ohio, has a bunch of industrial stuff, including a steel mill, and you can see all of the tracks that are going into the mill here, which is quite a lot of tracks. And you can see, we can zoom into here. Let's see how much data we can get on the screen. Let's see. I'm not too sure if these tracks are identified. It doesn't look like it. It looks like we're able to see the tracks, but they're not numbered on here. And a lot of times, volunteers, I believe, submit information to this database. And you can see just a lot of tracks in there. Yes, Union Pacific 1943 mentions that you can use OpenRailwayMap to build your own model railroad instead of using Google. The great thing about it is if you wanted to do a reproduction of the steel mills in Middletown, you could do that. You can kind of see from an overview of what it all looks like here with all the various lines, and you could basically create your own layout here because you can see that there's a track that loops around. So technically you could do a reproduction of the whole entire steel mill just inside this space, which would kind of make a cool layout for you there. But yeah, I mean, this is pretty awesome to be able to see it. And you can see that I'm opening this up, and you can see the Dayton district up here, Dayton, and we can open up even more, and we can see a lot more stuff here, a lot of the major railroad lines here. Typically, those abandoned railroad lines are going to show up when you zoom in to the map here. Like, for instance, we've got, I can show you another abandoned railroad line in Mansfield, which if I go here, let's see. Right here, there's an abandoned railroad line it was in Mansfield. And you can see it right here, and then some of this is actually a bike trail. And this used to connect to the Middleborough subdivision. I actually did a blog entry about this. So So right here, you can see the abandoned railroad line here, and then it comes back to service the Miles Standish subdivision. So, and then of course there's the Middleborough subdivision there. So all types of great stuff in here to be able to track and follow the various railroad lines here. And there's tons. If you could spend hours on this website looking for abandoned railroad lines, and then of course maybe opening on another browser the something like for instance like Google Earth, for example. Let me see if I can think of a railroad line that you can actually see in that sense. I know there's like right here. Let me just see. I'm trying to think of an example. So there's the old Fairhaven branch. So what we can do is let's go here. And let's go to Wareham. Mass. So here we can actually open this into a web browser and take a look here. Let me get rid of this. We don't need that. So let me just do this as... Is it Wareham? I think it is, where that line terminates. So we can see here on this map, and I'm trying to remember where it turns off, if I can remember. So let me go back over here. I'm going to look here. So I'm going to look for marks, excuse me. So Tremont Nail, it used to be a business that was over here, so Tremont. So let me look at this and see if I can, right here, and then it's somewhere over here if I remember correctly. Let me look at that. So where is it splitting off? It's before it bends here. So Main Street is here. So let me put this back into map mode. I'm looking for Main Street, and let me look here. So Main Street's here. It kind of goes that way. So we're looking for Main Street. So then there's some water here. So let's take a look where that water is. So it's right by the pond here where that branches off. So let me find the pond. So is that the pond there? I think it is. Okay, so now what I'll do is let's switch this over. And we might be able to see it. We might not. It's somewhere over here where it used to cut over. It's before there, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so it's right. There it, where is it? Let's see. Yeah, this one's a little harder to find because this was abandoned way long time ago. So it's a little harder to find. But yeah, I'm not too sure if I come out a little bit. But it basically went... is it over here? No, I don't know where it is. Of course, this is a live show, so I'm not able to do that. But you can see here that it spurred off in this direction and then headed down towards Fairhaven, Massachusetts. And then some of this line is actually a bike trail through here, I believe. Yes, there it is. There's the bike trail right through here, making its way all the way down to here. But yeah, I mean, some really cool stuff here. You're able to see a lot with Open Railway Maps. You can see, in some cases it'll show mileposts on here, which you do have some of that here. You can see that the new Bedford Fall River Station, and you can see the new track that they're going to have for storing locomotives, and there's a yard there as well. So tons of great stuff there. Any other questions? Chris, I don't know enough of background about the Michigan railroads, but I'd have to visit up there and do some research. But yeah, definitely that's something that I probably could do in the future. I just need time off, and I need money, and essentially I could do anything, but I would love to be able to do that. But yeah, I mean, Open Railway Maps is really cool. You can see here that there's also a legend on the side, so if there's anything that you're unsure of, you can see that all here, all on this website. But yeah, that is a little tour and a live demonstration of OpenRailwayMap.org. I really wish that I could have found that Wareham. They must have updated the satellite imagery, which they do periodically, and that line is a little bit more difficult to be able to follow and track because of the growth, with all the trees and such. But there's some that are really easy to find. You can see it cut, in between properties and such. But it's a lot of research being able to do that. And sometimes you can actually see on Google Maps, you can see where the property lines are in some cases. And you can see a strip of property where there's nothing, and that's, where the railroad line used to be. So you'd be able to see that as well. But all good stuff there. So let's wrap up this show for this evening. If anybody has any last-minute questions, make sure you ask those in the chat. I'll try to answer those before we wrap it up. So tonight's show was a Railfan's guide to OpenRailwayMap.org. And make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to our social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, which is now known as X, and YouTube. Of course, you're watching it here, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. And make sure to support the channel by shopping the Train Aficionado store. We've got hats, t-shirts. We even have coffee mugs and a couple other things that you can pick up there. Visit trainaficionado.com for the blog and for the store and our trackside guides. So we'd greatly appreciate that. But thank you all for joining us tonight for Train Aficionado Live. Next show, we'll have the Scanner Guys, which will be the third Wednesday of the month, which will be February the 19th. And then Train Aficionado will be back on March the 5th. So make sure you mark your calendar, set a reminder on your phone. Tomorrow night, the Cincinnati Railroad Club will be hosting its members meeting, and there'll be a great program on there. So make sure you join the Cincinnati Railroad Club's YouTube channel as well. And that program will start on their YouTube channel at at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. 8 p.m. Eastern Time on their YouTube channel. So thank you so much for joining tonight's program. Be safe out there. It is starting to hopefully get warmer out there, so we'll be able to do some rail fanning, out there. But we'll catch you again next time on Train Aficionado Live. Have a great night and be safe.